welcome to this week's assembly. So, our recommended read today is The Diary of Anne Frank, which is also known as The Diary of a Young Girl. Now, you may have read this before, you may not have. However, it is about a girl who was 13 years old and she bought her diary a couple of days after her birthday. In that book, she wanted to keep it as a diary entry, and literally a few days after she'd got a diary, she ended up having to go into hiding. She was a Jewish girl who lived in the Netherlands, and for 2 years she ended up having to hide in a small room. And the reason for that is because Netherlands at that time was occupied by the Nazis. Sadly, after 2 years of being in hiding, in 1944, the family and friends were discovered and they were deported to Nazi concentration camps. They were thought that they may have been betrayed. However, it may have been accidental in relation to rations and looking at ration booklets and ration tokens. Of the 8 people, so Anne Frank's family and their friends, only Otto Frank, the father, survived the war. Anne Frank was only 15 years old when she died in Bergen-Belsen. We're not quite sure of the exact date of her death. However, what we do know is that she died a few weeks before the prisoners were liberated, before they were freed by the British troops on the 15th of April, 1945. Now, I don't know if you know, however, this brings us on to the start of our assembly. And the focus for this week is on communication. And this is looking at the ready part of our Edge Academy curriculum. Hajime mashite, dozo yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Guten Tag, wie geht's dir? Bonjour, comment vas-tu? Ciao, come stai? Hello, kier, como estás? Alright, how's it going? As you can tell from all around the world, everybody uses some form of communication to ask other people how are they and how are they doing. And it's a lovely way to celebrate saying hello. Now, communication is massive and key to this week's assembly, but communication doesn't always go the way we want it to. There can be a breakdown in communication, and when that happens, it causes problems. So, in Wales, the following message was sent to a Welsh translator to be put on a road sign. And the message that needed to be translated said, "No entry for heavy goods vehicles, residential site only." The only problem was the message didn't get through on the email, and an automated reply came back. "I'm not in the office at the moment. Send out any work to be translated." The automatic reply, which was written in Welsh, was mistakenly taken as the answer and printed on the sign, which was then put up on the roadside. And as you can see, this is what happened. Now, if you are English, obviously the top of the sign is absolutely fine because it states no entry for heavy goods vehicles. It's a residential site only. So people in the community live there and they can't have any massive vehicles going through their neighbourhood. However, if you could only speak Welsh, the Welsh reads, "I'm not in the office at the moment. Send any work to be translated." And obviously, even though it's quite humorous now, it could end up in massive difficulties. So what we do know is that when there is a breakdown in communication, things can go wrong. Lots of things can go wrong, like relationships can break down due to a lack in communication, and friendships can fall apart. And you know as well as I do that things that are said in school can be taken the wrong way. Things that are stated that you overhear can be spread as a rumour around school, and this causes huge amounts of communication problems. So what I'd like to know today is, what sort of listening and speaking have you done so far today? Have you spread any malicious gossip? Have you given somebody a compliment? Have you asked questions in class? Have you learnt something new for the first time? Or have you greeted friends or family? Did you say to anyone this morning, good morning, how are you doing? Are you well? Are you happy? Are you okay? Have you said hello to staff members here who always try to go the extra mile? Have you greeted any friends and asked if they're okay? Have you found out something new today? Have you learnt something new in a different subject? Have you shared any news that's been going on around the country, around our town, or maybe shared news about people in school? Have you given any instructions or followed any instructions to anywhere? Have you asked or answered any questions in class? Or have you disagreed with somebody about what they've done? Alternately, have you resolved an issue? The fact is that language is like most other things we learn, and we need to practice it to make it perfect. We don't just need good listening and speaking skills to get through an exam, because in English language, you actually get given a grade for your spoken language, either a pass or a merit or a distinction. There are many other reasons why you need good speaking and listening skills. Firstly, you need to be able to communicate effectively with people, because if you can't do that, they do not understand what you need. If you can communicate effectively, it develops your self-confidence and you feel much better about yourself. There are so many things to learn in the world. What have you learned about today? To get a good job, you need to be able to effectively communicate. If you work in a shop, you need to be able to communicate with your manager, and they need to be able to tell you what to do. You need to understand that, and you need to tell them your thoughts. If you're dealing and working with customers, you need to communicate effectively with them, be polite and well-mannered, and listen carefully to what they're saying, and you need to communicate with them. In friendships, the only way it's going to work is if you have open lines of communication and you effectively listen to one another and support one another. As you can see, this gentleman here from the portrait is Stephen Hawkins. And what he says, and in the video that you are going to be watching,
for millions of years, mankind lived just like the animals. Then something happened, which unleashed the power of our imagination. We learned to talk. We learned to listen. Speech has allowed the communication of ideas, enabling human beings to work together. To build the impossible. Mankind's greatest achievements have come about by talking. And its greatest failures by not talking. It doesn't have to be like this. Our greatest hopes could become reality in the future. With the technology at our disposal, the possibilities are unbounded. All we need to do is make sure we keep talking.
So I think the one thing we really need to do, and it isn't about the fact that we haven't got phones in lessons now, but we do need to put our phones away and we need to talk and communicate with people and not just ignore them and stay on our phones. We need to stay in the present, in the here and now. Now, I would like you to listen to this wonderful song that was created by Gary Barlow, it also has the royal family in it. And I think the lyrics are absolutely beautiful when it says, sing it louder, sing it clearer, knowing everyone will hear you. Make some noise, find your voice tonight. Everybody needs to have a voice. Everybody needs to be, everyone's opinion needs to be valued. Thank you for listening to today's assembly on communication. I hope you enjoy the song and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.